total plant material ingested minus lost material in the form of feces. Now you observe. Now this is first trophic level. Here what is the present? The producer. The producer prepares the grass primary productivity. Some amount of productivity is utilized for the respiration. Now GPP minus R, we are getting NPP. Now in the body of producer, what is present right now? The NPP. Now this is the second trophic level. The second trophic level is occupied by primary consumer. The primary consumer is also called the herbivore. Now the herbivore ingest NPP minus some amount of ingested food material lost in the form of feces. The amount of NPP ingested by herbivore minus the productivity lost through feces, we are getting the grass secondary productivity. In the grass secondary productivity, the herbivore utilizes some amount of productivity for its activities, that is respiration. So GSP minus R, we are getting NSP. But here what is the question? Total plant material. What type of plant material eaten by herbivore? NPP. The amount of NPP ingested by herbivore minus the amount of productivity lost through feces. So we are getting the grass secondary productivity. Here what is the correct answer is the second option, GSP. Now we go for the next question. Energy present inside the body is called as net primary production soon after. Again repeating, energy present inside the body is called as net primary production soon after. Now you observe again this diagram. This is first trophic level occupied by the producers. The producers prepare some amount of food material or organic material or energy. That we call it as GPP. In the GPP, some amount of productivity utilized for respiration. Now GPP minus R, we are getting NPP. Whenever we are called or we use the NPP from the GPP, some amount of productivity is utilized for respiration. So from the GPP, we remove the productivity for the respiration. Then we call that productivity is called NPP. Now here regarding the question, energy present inside the body is called as net primary production soon after. First option, photosynthesis in plants, respiration in plants, ingestion in herbivores, assimilation in herbivores. What is the correct answer? Soon after respiration. Now the next question. Assertion, periphyton is absent in a limnetic zone of a deep lake. What is meant by periphyton? They are attached to aquatic plants. Now here what is the assertion? Periphyton is absent in the limnetic zone of a deep lake. Now we have to observe a deep lake. In a deep lake, the three zones are present. Now this one we call it as the lateral zone, and this one we call it as the profundal zone. Now this is the open water zone, that we call it as the limnetic zone. The limnetic zone extending up to 200 meters. As we observe the limnetic zone, it is a open water zone. It has no contact with the lateral zone as well as the profundal zone. So in the limnetic zone, there is no soil, because it has no contact with the lateral zone and profundal zone. And in the limnetic zone, no question of rooted plants. In the limnetic zone, rooted plants are absent. So in the limnetic zone, what are absent? The periphyton are absent. What is meant by periphyton? They are attached to the rooted plants. But in the limnetic zone, there is no rooted plants, because It has no contact with the lateral zone and profundal zone. It is open water zone. It has no soil. It has no bottom. So there is no chance for the rooted plants. If there is no rooted plants, there is no chance for the periphyton. Here, periphyton absent in the limit zone of a deep lake. Reason, producers that harbor the periphyton is absent in the limit zone. So the answer is, both are correct. The R explains A. Now we go for the next question. Assertion, photosynthetic plants do not occur in the profundal zone. Now this is a deep freshwater lake. Here this one we call it as euphotic zone, that is 0 to 80 meters, and this is dysphotic zone 0 to 200 meters. Now beyond 200 meters, this one we call it as the profundal zone. As we observe the deep freshwater lake, as depth increases, the light intensity decreases. At 200 meters, how much percentage of light is available? Just only 1%. Beyond 200 meters, there is no availability of light. So beyond 200 meters, it is called profundal zone. It is called euphotic zone because here light absent. The oxygen is very limit. So because of the absence of light in the profundal zone, there is no chance of photosynthetic plants. Now assertion, photosynthetic plants do not occur in the profundal zone. Reason, profundal zone beyond the compensation level. What is meant by compensation level? The place where the dysphotic zone ends, or the place where the liminitic zone ends. That means the dysphotic zone ends at 200 meters. Here the rate of photosynthesis is equal to that of the rate of respiration. Because of the photosynthesis, what will be released? The oxygen will be released. Such oxygen utilized by the animals in the respiration. There is no net addition of oxygen. So what is meant by compensation level? The place where dysphotic zone ends, or the place where the liminitic zone ends, that we call it as the compensation level. At compensation level, the rate of photosynthesis is equal to that of the rate of respiration. At compensation level, how much percentage of light is available? Just only 1%. Beyond compensation level, what is the present? Profundal zone. In the profundal zone, there is no light availability. So the photosynthetic plants are totally absent. Based on this information, both are correct. RE explains A. Now we go for the next question. Assertion, vegetation is abundant and oxygen content is high in the lateral zone. Now as we observe a deep freshwater lake, now this one we call it as the lateral zone. This is called the lateral zone. And this one we call it as the liminitic zone, and this one we call it as profundal. Now as we observe the lateral zone, you have to identify the diagram. The lateral zone is very close to shore. The lateral zone is shallow. The lateral zone bottom is covered by soil. As the lateral zone is shallow, the light reaches to the bottom. The temperature reaches the bottom. So the light is plenty. The VGR is available. The temperature is plenty because it is shallow. It is very close to shore. As it is shallow, the light reaches the bottom. The temperature reaches the bottom. So in the lateral zone, the producers are more. Rate of photosynthesis more. Oxygen availability more. Food materials availability more. As these are more, automatically the consumers number is also more. Now here assertion, vegetation, it means the plants is abundant and oxygen content is high in the lateral region. Reason, lateral zone is shallow water zone where the light can penetrate up to the bottom. So both are correct. RE explains here. Now we go for the next question. sigmoid growth curve is also referred to as the logistic growth curve. A reason, this curve does not show the negative acceleration. Now, in order to explain the growth of a population, we have to take the growth curves. Now this one we call it as x-axis, that means y, and this one we call it as x-axis. In order to explain the growth of a population, we have to take the growth curves. Now, initially one population enters into one new environment. In the beginning, the population is not adapted to the environment. So in the beginning, the growth is slow, that is positive acceleration. Whenever the population is adapted to the environmental conditions, it exhibits the maximum growth, that we call it as the logarithmic phase. Now this is called the logarithmic phase. But always the conditions are not favorable. Whenever the conditions are unfavorable, the birth rate decreases, death rate increases. Now it enters into negative acceleration. After negative acceleration, the population enters into zero population. Here birth rate, death rate both are equal. This is also called the stability or carrying capacity. Almost all organisms in the universe exhibit what type of growth curve? SR sigmoid. Now you have to observe the diagram. In this diagram, what type of stages are present? Positive acceleration. Here the growth is slow. Logarithmic phase, the growth is maximum. Whenever the conditions are not favorable, the growth decreases, negative acceleration. After negative acceleration, the population enters into zero population. It is also called stable population. It is also called carrying capacity. So in a SR sigmoid growth curve, we observe positive, logarithmic, negative, etc. What is the actual growth between negative acceleration and positive acceleration? Now here, sigmoid growth curve is also referred to as logistic growth curve. Assertion is correct. Reason, in this curve, we should not observe the negative acceleration. But here what is present? The negative acceleration. So A is correct, R is false. Now we go for the next question. Now, first column, nature of the population. Second one, type of pyramid. Third one, predominant age group. Now as we observe the population, in any population we have to discuss the natality, birth rate. Second, we have to discuss the mortality, that is death rate. Third one is the dispersal or migration. And the fourth one we call it as density. And the next one we call it as age groups. And the last one we call it as regulation. In any population, 3 age groups are present. One we call it as pre-reproductive. Second one we call it as reproductive. And the third one we call it as the post-reproductive. Now in a population, in order to explain the age groups, we have to take the age pyramids. Now this is the growing population, and this is the stable population, and this is the declining population. Now as we observe the growing population, in the growing population, what is the age pyramid? That is triangular. Now in the stable population, what is the age pyramid? That is the bell shape. In the declining population, what is the shape of age pyramid? That is urn shape. Urn means pot. And this is bell shape. And this is triangular. Now in the growing population, the pre-reproductive age group predominant than reproductive and post-reproductive. Now here the first one, growing population, age pyramid is triangular. What is the predominant group? That is pre-reproductive. Now second one is stable population. In the stable population, the pre-reproductive, the reproductive and post-reproductive, 3 age groups are equal. Now the second, stable population, okay, the shape is bell. Here what is the predominant? Reproductive. It is wrong, because in the stable population 3 age groups are in the equal size. What about the declining population? In the declining population, this is pre-reproductive age group, and this is reproductive age group, and this is post. Now in the declining population, What is the shape of age pyramid? Urn shape or pod shape. What is the predominant age group? That is post reproductive. Now as we observe these three diagrams, the bottom occupied by pre-reproductive, the middle occupied by reproductive, and the top occupied by post reproductive. Third one, declining population. What is the shape of the pyramid? Urn. And what is the predominant group? That is the post reproductive. So first option, second option correct. Now what is the correct answer for this question? The third one. Now we go for the next question. Inverted pyramid of number is seen in case of. Now as we observe the number pyramid, generally as tropic level increases, the number of individuals decreases. So regarding the number pyramid, always straight or upright or triangular, but where the number pyramid is inverted. Now this is one plant. Here the plant number is 1. On a plant, what are present? The squirrels are present and birds are present. When compared to that of the plant, the squirrels number and birds number is more. Here the plant number is less. On plants as well as on these animals, what are present? The parasites are present. As we observe the parasites, their body size is small. So when compared to that of the plants, squirrels and birds, the parasites number is more because their body size is small. So in case of parasites, as the tropic level increases, the number decreases, so that the number pyramid is inverted. Here inverted pyramid of number is seen in case of grazing food chain, detritus food chain, parasitic food chain, predatory food chain. The correct answer is the parasitic food chain. We go for the next question. Now list 1, stable population, declining population, density dependent growth curve, density independent growth curve, and growing population. Now again we have to observe the list 1, stable population. In the stable population, 3 age groups are equal in size. What is the shape of the stable population? That is bell shape. Now what about the declining population? In the declining population, the age pyramid is urn or pot shape. In the growing population, what is the shape of age pyramid? Triangular. Now as we observe the S or sigmoid growth curve, y-axis, x-axis, and this is positive acceleration, logarithmic phase, negative acceleration, zero population, or the stable population or carrying capacity. Now in J-shaped growth curve, this is y-axis, this is x-axis, and this is positive acceleration. In the J-shaped growth curve, whenever the conditions are favorable, the population increases maximum growth in a straight, that is J shape. In the J-shaped growth curve, the population does not depend on density, so it is called the density independent. In the S-shaped growth curve, the population depends on density. Now you observe, what is the stable population? Shape of stable population, bell shape. Declining population shape, urn shape. What is the density dependent? S-shaped or sigmoid growth curve. Density independent growth curve, that is the J-shaped growth curve or exponential growth curve. Growing population, that is the triangular shape. Based on this information, the answer is you have to observe. Now we go for the next question. Genetic variability among individuals of a species. Now again the question is genetic variability among the individuals of a species. As we observe in the kingdom Animalia, different animal species are present. In different species, the genetic material is different. Take for example, as we observe the human beings, in the body of the human beings, how many chromosomes? 46 chromosomes. Now, the female, this is indication of the female suffering from Turner's syndrome. In our body, how many chromosomes? 45. Now, this is the male. The male suffers from Klinefelter's syndrome. The one who has been suffering from the Klinefelter's syndrome, in his body, how many chromosomes? 47. Now you have to observe the genetic variability. In the same way, go for honeybee family. Go for honeybee family. In the honeybee family, now in the queen, how many chromosomes diploid? 32. Now in the worker honeybee, diploid number of chromosomes 32. Whereas in the male honeybee, how many chromosomes? 16. That is a genetic variability. That means species to species, the chromosomes number varies. That we call it as genetic variability. Because of the genetic variability, we are adapted or we are survive in the changed environment. As the environment changes, the genetic variability increases. Now here, genetic variability among the individuals of a species, gamma diversity, species diversity, genetic diversity, beta diversity. Based on this information, what is the correct answer? The genetic diversity. Now we go for the next question. Excellent examples of species diversity. Excellent examples for the species diversity. What is meant by species diversity? It is the area in which different species are present. Now, as we observe the species diversity, what is the classical example for the species diversity? That we call it as biodiversity hotspots. What is meant by biodiversity hotspot? It is the place in which the species are threatened by destruction. The biodiversity hotspot are first explained by Norman Mailer. Biodiversity hotspot, it is the place in which the species are threatened by destruction. Now this is the species 1, species 2, species 3, species 4, species 5, species 6. Different species are present in a area. Biodiversity hotspot is a place in which the species are threatened by destruction. That we call it as biodiversity hotspot. Now here, what is the classical or excellent example of species diversity? Biosphere reserve, sanctuaries, biodiversity hotspots and national parks. What is the correct answer? The biodiversity hotspot. Now we move for the next question. The peak of the species richness is between here. What is the species richness? What is meant by species richness? Now this is one area. A means area. In this area, species 1, species 2, species 3, species 4, species 5 and species 6 and species 7, species 8, etc. In a area, more number of species are present, that we call it as species richness. Now, in the species 1, only 10 individuals. In the species 2, 11 individuals. In the species 3, 8 individuals. In the species 4, 7 individuals. In the species 5, 6 individuals. In the species 6, 12 individuals. In the species 7, 14. In the species 8, 15 individuals. Now, regarding each species, the number of individuals. Where the number of individuals are more? In the species 8, 15 numbers. The relative abundance, that we call it as the species evenness. Now here, the peak of the species richness is between. Now this is the globe. Now this is equator. We know very well this is the equator. And this is the North Pole. And this is South Pole. From North Pole to South Pole, from North Pole to South Pole, the species richness increases. Here in this area species richness is more, but at equator the species richness is very very less. Now from equator to south pole slowly the species richness decreases. Again as we move from equator to south pole, here the species richness is more. At equator less, south pole less, north pole less. Now where the species richness is more, 20 degrees N to 30 degrees N. Why in this area the species richness is more? Because the radiant energy is more, the water is more, and the minerals are more. Now the peak of the species richness is between 20 degrees N to 30 degrees N. Now we go for the next question. Assertion: higher levels of species richness is seen at lower latitudes. Now this is lower latitude and this is lower latitude. Here there is no species richness. Here no species richness. Here at equator no species richness. At lower latitudes the species richness is more. Why the species richness is more at lower latitudes? Because at lower latitudes throughout the year the radiant energy available, throughout the year water available, throughout the year minerals are available. What is meant by species richness? The presence of different species. What is meant by species evenness? The relative abundance of species. Now here the question. Assertion: higher levels of species richness is seen at lower latitudes. Now what is the reason? At lower latitudes the area is large, solar radiation is more, minerals more, water availability more. So automatically at lower latitudes species richness is more, that is from 20 degrees N to 30 degrees N. So both are correct. RE explains A. Now we go for the next question. A measure of overall diversity for different ecosystems within a region. Now we have to discuss the diversity at ecosystem level. Take for example the aquatic ecosystem. The aquatic ecosystem is classified into, this is freshwater ecosystem and this is brackish water ecosystem and this is marine water ecosystem. This is one ecosystem, this is one ecosystem, another ecosystem. As we observe the diversity in one ecosystem, that is called alpha diversity. As we observe the diversity between two ecosystems, then we call it as the beta diversity. In the universe, as we observe the diversity among all ecosystems, that we call it as the gamma diversity. That means it is indicated as this. So only in one ecosystem alpha, between two ecosystems beta, and among all ecosystems that we call it as gamma. Now a measure of the overall diversity for different ecosystems within a area or within a region is called alpha, beta, gamma, delta. The answer is gamma. Now we go for the next question. Now as we observe the matching, A, biodiversity. What is meant by diversity? Biodiversity, different plant species and animal species. Genetic diversity, diversity among the genetic material of species. What is meant by species diversity? Different species. What is meant by ecosystem diversity? Different ecosystems. Here list 2, diversity of genes within a species, among species, variety of ecosystems, among genera, diversity of light, diversity of life. Now biodiversity concerned with diversity of the light. Genetic diversity, that is genetic diversity of the genes within a species. What is meant by species diversity? among species. What is meant by ecosystem diversity? That is variety of ecosystems. Based on this information, what is the answer for this question? The first one. Now we go for the next question. Read the following regarding genetic diversity. Now, genetic diversity is an advantageous for survival. As the environment changes, the genetic diversity increases. Because of the genetic diversity, the organisms adapted to the environment. We are all having 46 chromosomes. So we are adapted to the environment. So the genetic diversity helps for the survival, for the adaptiveness. So genetic diversity is advantageous for the survival. It is correct. Now, second statement. Genetic variations occur in asexually reproducing organisms. It is wrong, because in the asexual reproduction, how many organisms participate? Only one organism. We should not explain the gamete formation. We should not explain the fertilization, so that we should not explain the recombinations and variations. So the second statement wrong. Third, specialized genes display a greater degree of variations according to the environmental variations. Regarding this statement, as we observe the universe, what are the total number of the genes? 10 to the power of 10. Depending upon the species, the genetic variability increases, that is measured as 10 to the power of 10 genes. Now, regarding this question, the first statement, third statement is correct. Now we go for the next question. The simplest measure of biodiversity. One is species richness. Second one is species evenness. Third one is species endemism. Now, what is meant by species richness? In a area, different species present, that is species richness. What is meant by species evenness? Relative abundance of species. What is meant by endemism? The area in which how many unique species are present. That is called species endemism. For example, in New Zealand, kiwi present. In New Zealand, spinodon present. That is the species endemism. Now, here what is the simplest measure of biodiversity? That is the species richness. Now we go for the next question. Now, list 1, quinine, digitalin, morphine, vinballistin. List 2, foxglove plant, poppy plant, cinchona tree, sarpagandhi, vinca. Where we have to discuss, that is the economic importance of biodiversity. In the universe, each species having its own economic importance. Now, quinine, in order to control the malaria, the quinine is required. It is obtained from the bark of Cinchona officinalis. So, quinine associated with cinchona tree. What about the digitalin? That is obtained from the foxglove plant. And morphine, that is obtained by poppy plant, nothing but gasagasalu plant. And what about the vinballistin? That helps to control or cure the cancer, that is obtained by vinca. Vinballistin, vincristin, they are obtained from vinca. Morphine obtained from poppy plant. Digitalin obtained from foxglove plant. Quinine obtained from the bark of Cinchona officinalis. It means in the universe, if we are going to lose one species, we should not get it back, because each species having its own importance. Now, based on this information, the answer is 2. Now we go for the next question. Now, clavaria, seeds. Clavaria is a plant. Seeds germinate only when they pass through abrasive stone-filled gizzard of following bird. One is quail, second one dodo, third one parrot, fourth one kiwi. Dodo, it is a flightless bird confined to Mauritius. Because of the human being activities, we lost the dodo. Because of the absence of dodo, clavaria plant cultivation was stopped. Because as we observe the clavaria, its seeds are eaten by dodo. The dodo releases the seeds of clavaria along with the fecal matter. Then only the seeds are germinated. Nowadays, we lost the dodo. Because of the absence of dodo, the cultivation of clavaria is abruptly stopped. Because without dodo, the seeds of clavaria will not germinate. Now here the correct answer is dodo. It is a flightless bird confined to Mauritius. The next one. The largest scale biogeographic region of Earth surface based on historic and evolution of distribution of plants and animals. Now, as we observe the biotope, what is meant by biotope? It is an area having uniform environmental conditions. What is meant by ecozone? Ecozone having, as we observe the ecozone, it has the evolutionary background and historical background. What about the ecoregion? It is the area having the natural boundaries. What is meant by biotome? It is the area having specific climatic conditions. But here what is the question? The largest area or largest scale biogeographic region of Earth surface based on historic background, evolutionary background of plants and animals. That area we call it as ecozone. The answer is 2. Now we go for the next question. Read the following statements regarding the conservation of biodiversity. The biodiversity is conserved. One is in situ. Second one is ex situ. What is the other name of in situ? On situ. What is the other name of ex situ? Off situ. And in the in situ, what is meant by in situ conservation? It is the place in which the place where plants and animals are originated, there they are preserved. One example, national park. One example is sanctuary. One example is biosphere reserve. What is meant by ex situ? The place where plants and animals are originated, there they are not conserved. Somewhere they are conserved. That is botanical gardens and zoo. Here, the first one. There are two main types of conservations of biodiversity. Yes, one is in situ, second one is ex situ. Second one, in situ, no doubt it is ideal conservation because the place where plants and animals originated, there they are being the conserved. So no doubt it is ideal. The second one is correct. Third, what is the earliest national parks? One is the Yellowstone National Park in USA and Royal National Park in Australia. So the three statements given are correct. So the first answer is correct. Now we go for the next question. Arrange the following zones of biosphere reserve in a sequence from the outside to inside. Now as we observe the biosphere reserve, here the first one we call it as the manipulation zone or transitional zone. And the second one we call it as the buffer zone. The third one we call it as core zone. Now what is meant by transitional or manipulation zone? Here all human activities are allowed. For example, in the manipulation zone, Tandas, Lambadis, Girijans, variety of human populations are present in the manipulation zone. That is followed by buffer zone. In the buffer zone, only the research work is allowed with permission. Core zone, it is completely allotted for the cruel wild animals. So what is the arrangement of regions of biosphere reserve from outer to inner? Manipulation or transitional, followed by buffer, followed by core. Now the answer is third. Now we go for the next question. The following are the statements regarding the reasons for the extinction of wildlife. The human being is mainly responsible for the extinction of biodiversity. One is the pollution. The second one is growing population. The third one is advancement in the technology. And the fourth one is over exploitation. And the fifth one is overfishing. And the next one is the over hunting. And we are occupying the areas of wild animals or the wildlife. Now here, what are the reasons for the extinction of biodiversity? 1. Rapid reforestation for the human necessities. Here rapid reforestation, that is not the correct. Forest fires, that leads to extinction of biodiversity. Environmental pollution also causes the extinction of biodiversity. Second and third correct. Now we go for the next question. Arrange the following India's biodiversity preservation centers in an ascending order as per their number. Now in India, how many biodiversity hotspots? Near about 3. What about the wetlands? Near about 6. And national parks? Near about 88. What about the sanctuaries? 490 or 499. World heritage sites? 5. This is the number of corresponding places. In India, biodiversity hotspots? 3. What about the Ramsar wetlands? 6. Number of national parks? 88. And sanctuaries? 490. World heritage sites? 5. 3, 5, 6, 88, 490. That is ascending order. With this, we completed the first year EAMCET program. From next class onwards, we have to discuss the second year EAMCET pattern and set important bits.